Hello friends, welcome. In today's video, we are going to discuss about the Scrum framework, and what we're going to discuss under the Scrum framework is different roles what we have in Scrum, different ceremonies what we follow in a Scrum artifacts what we are supposed to deliver, and more importantly, what are the roles and responsibilities for every role. And at the end, we are also going to discuss that how we measure a success for an agile engagement following a Scrum. So I'm sharing my screen here. This is a slide I have created for this video. It's a complete editable slide. I'll also upload this in a share path, and the link will be given in the description section. You can download it. So let's start. So there are different ways you can implement the agile, and one of the ways is Scrum framework. So there are three roles in a Scrum. One is a product owner, and the second role is a Scrum master, and the third role is a development team where we call them developers. So at a very high level, the product owner, he is supposed to create a product backlog, create a product goal, and prioritize the things for the team so that the product which is going out to the market is bring the right quality and the right competition and the right need of the customer. So product owner is a very important role, but I'm just discussing at high level. We'll go deeper a little later on this. The Scrum Master is there to coach team and making sure that organization and the team understand the Scrum framework. Now let's come to developers, our development team. So there is a myth out there that there is no tester, there is no architect, there is no design lead, there is no DevOps engineer in the Scrum team as a developer or in the development team. Why I'm saying this is a myth? Because what exactly Scrum team is, as I said, it's a combination of product owner, Scrum master, and development team. And in the development team, if you read my line here, the development team need a skill with the capacity of developer, tech lead, architect, database, Unix, CI/CD, DevOps. I've just put few names here. The point is that if you are building a product, whatever is needed to build that product, whatever skill is needed to build that product has to be part of the development team. So that's a myth that we don't have a tester there, we don't have different roles there. What we call them here is a developer. We call everyone as a developer, but we need all that skill which can deliver the product. So there is a myth which has been built over the time. I just want to break that myth that we need all kind of skills. Now, how they manage the work within the development team, it's up to them. I'll discuss that part as well. So now let's understand what are the different ceremonies we have. So we have four major ceremonies in the Scrum framework. One is this sprint planning, and then we have a sprint review, and in between of these we have a daily stand-up, and then at the end we have a sprint retrospective. So these are the four broad category at the Scrum framework. Now let's discuss, while we are discussing the roles and responsibilities, this is very important. If you are starting a new engagement in the Scrum framework, or if you're already part of the Scrum framework and following into your project, this session is very important because I'm going to discuss each and every aspect of the Scrum in this session. Also, I'll be discussing a couple of questions if you are applying for a Scrum Master certification. I'll be discussing as part of this whole thing. I'll be also discussing many questions which you will see in the Scrum Master certification PSM1 I'm referring to here, which is from scrum.org. So what development team is supposed to do, or what developers are supposed to do? They are supposed to assist, PO means product owner, for product backlog prioritization and story creation. So what happens is product owner is a primary responsible person to create a product backlog, okay, to prioritize the product backlog, to create the story, but he can delegate this work to the development team. And this you'll see a question also if you're preparing for a PSM1 exam. There might be a question that can product owner delegate his or her work to the development team or not. Answer is yes. The primary responsibility is with the product owner, but he or she can delegate the work. Now what he or she does as part of product backlog prioritization or refinement. So what they do is they put a description to it. Product owner will put a description to it. It will put an order to it based on the priority 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And they will also put a side with respect to estimation. Now development team will come in here. They will work with product owner. They will assist him for the backlog refinement, which is nothing, a description, order and size, and the estimation, which size means estimation. Because and there could be a case in many of the projects that the story has a lot of technical stuff to it, where the product owner need a development team to come and help him, and vice versa also. While developers are doing estimation, they have to understand the requirement well, the user story well, where they need a help from product owner. So the refinement session can't be done by the PO alone. It has to be a combined exercise from the product owner, from the development team. Let's come to my next point. Work with product owner for user story grooming. When we are refining them, adding more details to it, we also call this grooming. Now the next point is the sprint planning. As I said, it's one of the major ceremony. What we do in sprint planning, we'll have the Scrum team coming together, and the primary role on the sprint planning is from the product owner and from the development team. The Scrum recommendation is that if you are doing a Scrum framework, do not put your Scrum duration is more than a month. You can put a month or less than that. The reason is because they want to, the Scrum believes that they do inspect and adapt. So they want to keep that window as short as possible, that they can deliver something, they can inspect, and they can change their next course of action. So recommendation is that they go on a monthly basis or even less than that, where they deliver something, they look at the product, they learn from it, and then adjust the roadmap accordingly. So the recommendation is a month or less. This could be a question in your Scrum Master certification also. Now, what is the duration of sprint planning? If it's a 1 month sprint, the sprint planning is recommendation is 8 hours or less. 8 hours. If it's a sprint of let's say 2 weeks, then it can be less also. Now, what we do in sprint planning, because if you are part of a Scrum framework or a Scrum engagement, I'm sure you have those sessions. But what we do inside that session? So inside that session, we'll be creating a sprint backlog. Now, that's a very important term to understand, the sprint backlog, because this could be a question in your PSM1 exam also. What is a sprint backlog? So sprint backlog is a subset of product backlog. So product backlog is created by product owner, which is which is what it contains as part of product. What is that things you want to implement as part of product? Now, sprint backlog is that what is the subset of product backlog which can be taken in the sprint and deliver it. Now, the sprint backlog is a whole sole responsibility of the development team. So they will choose the sprint backlog to be delivered as per the priority assigned by product owner. But what they can deliver, how much they can deliver, and how they are going to deliver, that is a complete responsibility of development team. And this is very important, because I have seen this rule is breaking in every other project. Development team is one who will tell that what I can do based on my team skill, my capacity, my velocity, how much I can deliver and how I'm going to deliver. And this is what we also call a self-managed team. I'll discuss that part also. And then comes to my sprint goal. So every sprint, when we are having a sprint planning session, two things you have to do. You have to find out your sprint backlog, what it contains, that what you are going to deliver and how you are going to deliver. And second is my sprint goal. So what Scrum suggests is that as part of the Scrum, whatever as part of sprint, whatever has been picked up, you define that as a sprint goal. And why it is necessary? Because what happens many times is product owner explains something, development team understand it, they build something, and after a couple of days, when they go to the product owner or they go to the stakeholder, it is just the other side of the expectation. It is not matching what has been stated, and that's a gap. That's why it is very important that the Scrum team defines a sprint goal for every sprint. A sprint goal gives you a transparency. It's a common understanding between the product owner and the development team, so that when they are building something, they are keeping in mind a sprint goal, that at the end of the sprint, what I am supposed to achieve, and that is called my sprint goal. Again, I'm reiterating what I have discussed just now, because these are very important concepts from a implementation perspective and from a PSM1 exam perspective also, that the sprint it could be a 1 month or less a sprint, and the duration will be 8 hours or less based on your duration. A sprint backlog is that what you are going to deliver and how you are going to deliver. A sprint goal will give a transparency or a common understanding of the sprint to both product owner and development team. Now, the next point is definition of done. This is also a very important concept, definition of done. So what happens is every organization has a different way, or what we call also checklist at many places, that how they check their production readiness, and what Scrum call it the definition of done, and it vary organization to organization. So again, Scrum is a framework which helps you to build certain things. Okay, so this definition of done has to be carved out by individual project, by individual team. So a Scrum team will have a definition of done which has to be agreed upon with that Scrum team. And if there is a single product and there are more than one Scrum team, then the definition of done has to be understood and agreed upon by all the Scrum teams. Now let's discuss what is this definition of done. So in a project, when you're doing something, you might be having an architecture or design document getting signed off. When you develop something, then you have a unit testing to be done, and share the unit testing results. Then you'll have functional testing, what we call system testing. You might have an integration testing with a partner system. You'll have non-functional testing. You'll have security testing, and there could be more requirements. So definition of done is nothing. It's a list of things to be done before one can say that whatever I have delivered as part of a sprint is a usable increment. I'm using a term increment here. Let me take a minute and explain this. Whatever comes out as part of this sprint is called an increment in a Scrum framework. So if you deliver something as part of sprint 1, that's an increment 1. When you go to sprint 2 and you deliver at the end of sprint 2, that will be an increment on top of what has been delivered as part of sprint 1. So every time you create an increment which is usable, which is deployable, this is very important, which is usable and deployable. So it has to met your sprint goal, it has to met your definition of done. If it is met, then only we can say it's a usable and deployable. If it is not, it is not. So every organization has to define their definition of done. Every sprint will have a sprint goal. So these are very important concepts for implementation perspective as well, also from exam perspective. Now what else development team does? They define the architecture, they create a design document. There is a concept of lean documentation, so they don't do an extensive document. What they believe is there has to be a lean documentation, and they are focusing on building the product, building the increment in every sprint. They have to create task and subtask, whatever they work they do. They have to log effort. This is very important, that whatever they do. So there is a concept in Scrum framework is a Scrum pillar. So there are three pillars in the Scrum framework. One is transparency, second is inspect, and third is adapt. And this will be a question in your PSM1 exam also. What are three pillars of Scrum? So one is transparency, one is inspection, one is adaptation. So transparency means they want to give a full transparency of the work is being done by the team to the entire team, or to the stakeholder, or to the anyone who belong to that project or program. So transparency gives them enough I would say enough window that they can look at the things and they inspect it. So everybody has a transparency what the other person is doing. They can look at it, they can inspect, and they can improve themselves by adapting something. So retrospective is a formal ceremony for that. We'll discuss about it. But this transparency, inspect, and adapt is a throughout which has to be followed in the Scrum, and that's why it is called Scrum pillars. So three Scrum pillars: transparency, inspect, and adapt. That's going to be a question in your scrum.org PSM1 exam as well. So while we're logging effort, it will be visible with respect to effort logging. We can compare this, what has been estimated versus what actual has been spent. We can also see a nice burn down chart is coming in if you're logging the effort. If we do not do that, your matrix is going to be spoiled. So this is very important. Now comes to my daily stand-up. This is very critical. Why this is critical is because Scrum says that you have a daily stand-up and the time is 15 minutes. That's another question, that what is the time for the daily stand-up? It's a 15 minutes, not more, not less. So whatever you are doing in your project, you will come to a daily stand-up. The whole team will be there. They will be speaking about what they have done yesterday, what they are doing today. Is there any challenge? Is there any risk? Most important part is there, since we have defined the sprint goal. We discussed about the sprint goal. Since we defined the sprint goal and the complete team is aware about the sprint goal, so everybody will assess, they will listen to each other, they will look at the progress, and they will decide, are we going or marching towards our sprint goal or not. That's very important. So daily stand up is very important, that they review the progress, they review the risk, they review the challenges, and understand, are we going to meet the sprint goal or not. Does they need any adjustment? Does they need any help? They can go to Scrum Master. So this is very important, that everybody has to go there in the daily stand-up on a daily basis with the discipline and understand, are we marching towards our sprint goal or not. As I said, the duration is 15 minutes. Now the question might come in your exam is that who is supposed to attend the daily Scrum? So product owner and Scrum Masters are optional. The must part is the development team. They are self-managed team. They have to be there. They can have product owner joining that daily stand-up. They can have Scrum Master joining daily stand-up, but they are not must to attend. The only group who is must to attend is the development team. Now next item is they do coding, they do testing, they give a demo to stakeholder. Now to demo to stakeholder comes my sprint review. So you had a sprint planning session. Let me do a recap here. So you had a sprint planning session. Again, I'm doing it so that you also understand that it's in entirety. You do a right implementation of your project, and if you're preparing for exam, you have all the details in it. So you have a sprint planning session, which is an 8-hour session for a month sprint, or it will be less if the sprint duration is less. In the sprint planning session, you derive the sprint backlog. The sprint backlog is nothing. It's your what and how, what you're going to deliver, how you're going to deliver. This will be completely decision done by the development team only. You will define your sprint goal, and you will, again, I also discuss the definition of done, where the developers contribute whenever you are finalizing the definition of done. Then they will have everything logged into Jira or some other tool, ADO or whatever tool is being used. We'll have a daily stand-up. Daily stand-up is a formal event where you can go and look at the progress toward your sprint goal. And then they continuously go doing coding, testing, and whatever is needed to build an increment. And then when the sprint is over, let's say your sprint is 4-week sprint, when it is over, then you'll have a sprint review session. So a sprint review session is a formal session where the development team will give a product demo to the stakeholders. So we do not expect that product owner comes after the sprint is over for the sprint review. Product owner has to be there throughout the sprint. It could be a daily discussion, alternative discussion, as and when needed discussion. But the development team has to have a close coordination with product owner. They don't need to wait for 4 weeks. They have an implement feedback coming from the product owners. And then when the 4 weeks are done, there is a formal event, what we call a sprint review, where the product owner comes, where the stakeholders comes, and the development team give a demo. So it is not a kind of a PPT session. It's a session more on practical side of it, where they tell the stakeholder that what has been done, what they see as the next priority. They get a feedback from stakeholder, they adjust the priority. So the duration is 4 hours or less. If it's a 1-month sprint, the sprint review duration is 4 hours or less. So that's important from your exam perspective. Now this is a very interesting term, a self-managed team, and this also brings a question in the exam or even in your implementation also. What does it mean? It means they decide, and this is very important, they decide who, what, when, and how. What they are going to do, how they are going to do, who is going to do what. Everything will be decided by this team. So there might you might see a question that team is not co-located. They are at different places, and now they are trying to come to a daily stand-up, but they don't have a common time. They don't have a right infrastructure. They're having struggle bringing people. Now, who they seek for help? Are they supposed to go to project manager, a scrum master, a product owner, and who? So very first thing is there is no term as project manager in the Scrum framework. We have only Scrum Master, Product Owner, and Development Team. So this is team. As per the Scrum, the team has to be self-managed team. So they have to decide how. They are not going to go to anyone. They have to figure this out on themselves. This is very common question you will see in exam. That's how the self-managed team is. Now another ceremony, what Scrum says is retrospective. The transparency, inspection, and adoption is throughout the Scrum, but still there is a formal event, what we call retrospective. For a 1 month sprint, it's a 3 hours or less if the sprint duration is less. But that's a formal event when team comes together and then they see what we did good, what went well, what didn't went well, what we can improve. So they can assess themselves with respect to tools, processes, people, the product increment. They can assess themselves, right? They can appreciate themselves, what they did good, or they can see what we can improve. So there will be a lot of items coming out as part of this retrospective exercise. Let's say they figure out 10 items that they can improve. So what they can do is they can pick 1 or 2 or 3 items, which is the highest priority, and they can add that as a sprint backlog for the next sprint, so they can improve themselves. So idea is that they retrospect as a team at every single day, every single stage, and improve. That's how we do a retrospective all the time. Now another thing development team is supposed to do is they have to focus on their team velocity, burn down chart, sleep is, cumulative flow. So these are some of the KPIs which a Scrum team does follow. So team has to focus that their skills are elevating. I have also put point here that their skills are elevating. They are producing more work over the period. They have a better coordination, communication. So that's how they're increasing the team velocity. Velocity means how much work they are delivering. They are new to the system. If you are starting a new engagement, they are new to the application, they are new to the technology with respect to project. Now they spend more time, they have a better coordination, better communication, they understand the product more. Definitely their output will increase, and that's how my velocity will be measured. So make sure that they have to make sure their velocity is increasing over the period, or it is consistent. So all these things, whatever I've discussed so far, the development team is supposed to do. Now the another thing comes in, right? As I said, the product is going toward the production. So they are also supposed to create a transition handbook. They are supposed to hand it over to run operations. Anything comes in the under warranty support, they are supposed to deliver this as well. And at the end, they are supposed to assist the Scrum Master for team maturity. If they want to improve, the Scrum Master has certain things to do. They will assist him. They will join hands with him. So if I want to summarize here, as a development team, what they are supposed to do. So this is important. They are supposed to create an increment after each sprint, which is deployable and meet acceptance criteria. This is important. So whenever their story is being created, there is a term called acceptance criteria. So you'll have a story description and then the acceptance criteria, that what is supposed to be done as part of the story, that will be written in the acceptance criteria. And why acceptance criteria is important? Because it brings a transparency. What product owner expect out of this story has to be understood in the same way by the development team. That's why they write acceptance criteria, so that everyone understand what output is supposed to come out from this story. So a story will have acceptance criteria, which is clearly written there, and it will have the same understanding from all the stakeholders. So I'm reiterating, this development team, they have a lot of roles and responsibility, but what they are supposed to do, they are supposed to create an increment after each sprint, which is deployable, which is usable. That's one thing. And what should be part of development team? I need a skill which has every single capacity to deliver an usable increment. So that's my first part of this session, where I've covered the development team. Now let's switch to a Scrum Master. What Scrum Master is supposed to do. So at a very high level, the Scrum Master is supposed to coach my team and the organization on the Scrum framework. This is the primary responsibility. That the team understand what is Scrum, organization is understanding what is Scrum, and we follow the Scrum in a true spirit. So that's the primary job of the Scrum Master. Another myth is here that across industry that Scrum Master is a different nomenclature of the project manager. So earlier the team was using waterfall model. Now they're using Scrum or Agile, and then say the project manager, whoever was the project manager before, now is a Scrum Master. But that's a different, that's a myth basically. That is not a case. Now the question is what the Scrum Master is supposed to do. So let me discuss what he's supposed to do. The primary responsibility is he is going to coach team on the Scrum framework, the whole organization on the Scrum framework. What else he does is, if you are starting a new engagement, or if you are part of a part of this Scrum engagement, there has to be team enablement with respect to tool, with respect to processes. Let's say you're using a Jira tool or you're using Azure DevOps. Now, what should be my workflow in the tool? What should be my processes? So all these team Scrum Master can enable the team on the tool setup and customization. He can review and help team to set up the workflow in tool. He can create the guidelines, how to create a story, how to write a better acceptance criteria, how to do estimation. The Scrum says you can do estimation in story point, you can do a estimation in hours, you can do whatever way you want to do it. But then how to do a right estimation, what are the different techniques to do a estimation in a Scrum, all the Scrum Master can help team. He can help team to defining the definition of done, life cycle, etc. He will also work with the team to define the matrices. There are different matrices in Scrum: burn down chart, burn up chart, velocity, cumulative flow. There are so many matrices there. So he can work with the team to define those matrices and making sure team understand them, team read them right, because all those matrices again follow the transparency, inspect, and adapt model, the Scrum pillars basically. So team has to understand those matrices and then inspect and then improve. Now what else he's supposed to do? This is very important. He is supposed to protect his team from external intervenes, removing impediments so that team can focus on creating the increment, because development team has the only single goal that they have to create an increment after each sprint which is deployable and meeting acceptance criteria. So a Scrum Master can be a layer who can help team to do that. A Scrum Master also help product owner. So product owner job is doing backlog grooming, backlog refinement, backlog prioritization. So how to do a effective backlog management, how to do a effective backlog grooming. So he will also help product owner on this purpose. He will also assess team maturity. Over the period, team is using the Scrum for a long time. He will also assess how team is doing, how team is maturing. He will give a feedback to the team. The last point, which is very important from Scrum Master perspective, is guide team to improve its practices, follow empiricism. So Scrum follow more on empirical way, that we learn what we have done in past. Does team understand this? Is team improving their practices? So this is Scrum Master job, that he will continuously guide team. So I hope now you understand as a Scrum Master what are the roles and responsibility, because that is very important. As I said, if you are a part of the existing engagement following a Scrum, if you are starting a new engagement, what exactly is Scrum Master supposed to do? This is what he is supposed to do. Now, who can be a Scrum Master? This is very important. So we can't have someone who is doing the project manager role and going to a Scrum Master role. It has to be a PSM1, which is a certificate from scrum.org, or equivalent certificate done with a hands-on experience. That's a minimal criteria for the Scrum Master, so that he can do all these things mentioned here and justice with the role. It's a very key role to build a cross-functional, self-motivated team and ensure Scrum is understood and practiced in true spirit. If you don't have a Scrum Master who has a complete understanding of the Scrum, then team will follow the Scrum, which is actually not a Scrum. So this is very important, and he is certified Scrum Master. And if then he can build a cross-functional team, a self-managed team, a self-motivated team. and the organization and the team understand the Scrum and it is followed in a true spirit. Now let's understand what product owner is supposed to do. So we discussed earlier also, product owner is supposed to create product backlog, manage the product backlog, define the product goal, and do a prioritization. This is his primary responsibility. He also has to give a continuous feedback to the team on product increment. I said earlier, it is not that only the sprint review is the session when the product owner comes and give a feedback. It has to be a continuous engagement with the development team. The feedback has to come across, and if we need to do certain adjustment to meet the sprint goal, development team and the product owner has to come together and do that. So it has to be continuous feedback. Another the prime responsibility of the product owner is that we are building a right product. When you say right product means the product owner understand the changing market need, he understand the competition, he understand the product vision, and at the end he has to ensure the right product is built. This is very important. He also works liaison between the Scrum team and the business stakeholder, because he is the interface for business stakeholder. I think this point I discussed before also. Though he is the one who is supposed to write stories, but then he can delegate that work. He can delegate that work to a development team and they can assist him. And that's the point I have written here. This is very important to be understood, because many places I have seen that development team think that they are not supposed to do this work, but that's not a case. Product owner is supposed to create a story, but then he can delegate that work. So these are the roles and responsibility for the product owner. Now the question is, who is supposed to be a product owner? Product owner is supposed to be a domain expert with in-depth knowledge of the product and the competition. He is a single owner of the product. So we discussed about three roles, which are the primary roles of the Scrum team, development team, which we have developers, Scrum Master, and the product owner, their roles and responsibility. Now the important question is, how do we measure the success of this Scrum team? This is very important, and that's what if you see the right side of this slide, how do we measure the success? This is very important. As a Scrum team, when we say that we have succeeded into our project by following the Scrum, so the only way to measure success is the working product. So Scrum says, whatever documentation you have done, whatever meeting you have done, whatever review you have done, doesn't matter. The only way to measure success is your working product and your stakeholder feedback. If this is good, then you have succeeded following the Scrum. That's very important, that they look at the working product. They don't look at the processes, the documentation done and everything. If the working product is there, the feedback is good, we say we have succeeded. Another criteria is the product quality. Since we believe as a Scrum on transparency, inspect, and adaptation, so product quality is very important. If you are meeting a quality product, that's another way of looking at the success. There has to be a lean processes. As I said, we have focus on building the increment rather than processes and documentation. So process has to be lean, and we have to be agile. We have to be fast going to the market. We have to be deploy more frequently so that we can gather the feedback from the stakeholders. So this is another criteria to measure the success. We should have a upfront backlog, prioritized backlog, so that team can pick it up and deliver. Team maturity will be assessed if they are meeting their sprint goal, if they are meeting a definition of done, if they are meeting the acceptance criteria. Definition of done is defined. We have a matrices defined where the Scrum Master comes into picture to put the right matrices. Those are compliant, those are improving, the velocity is improving, team is improving their skills, their practices are improved, the DevOps is being improved, they are following the Scrum. So it goes from top to bottom. If you read this way, they are doing innovation, they are maturing DevOps, the skills is improving, velocity is improving, metrics are compliance, revenue done is there, team achieving sprint goal. All this will bring to a working product and a good stakeholder feedback. So if you want to measure the success of this Scrum framework, you can measure on all these parameters. So if I want to conclude this slide, from Scrum perspective, what is Scrum teams? You can look at the bottom message. What is the Scrum team? It's a self-motivated team. It's a cross-functional team. It's a team who believe on failing fast. They follow transparency, inspection, adapt as a Scrum pillars, and their measure of success is the working product. I've also put a Scrum values here because this might be a question in your PSM exam, that what are the Scrum values? The Scrum values are commitment, courage, focus, openness, and respect. And how do I remember is C for commitment, C for courage, F for focus, O for openness, R for respect. So the Scrum team understand all these parameters. They have a commitment. So commitment comes in terms of sprint goal. They have a courage to speak about, to go to daily stand-up, review their progresses, highlight the risk, highlight the challenges. They have a focus, approach, they have openness, and they respect each other. This all the Scrum values are very important if you want to follow the Scrum framework in its true spirit. So that's it from today's session. I hope you have received a good insight on the Scrum framework. What are the different roles? What are the different ceremonies? What are the different artifacts? So we discussed about the sprint backlog. We discussed about the increment. We discussed about definition of done. So all these things are artifacts. So I hope you understand them well. You understand what are the roles and responsibilities for different roles. And I'm sure this is going to be very helpful on your respective Scrum engagement. Thank you very much for watching this video.